Oblivion Remastered has just launched, and I get to relive my Cheeto-fingered youth, while Sean Bean leads me through a charnel village. But for many people, this is their first foray into the lands of Cyrodiil. And while it shares the same DNA as Skyrim, the game does have a lot of big differences that you might not be aware of at first. In this video today, I'm going to help break down the character creation process by going through each of the races, birth signs, and skills / custom class creation to help you decide what the best character for you is. If this is your first time on my channel, the way I do things is by uploading the knowledge in my videos. So with that being said, let me give you the down and dirty of this. Previously, you had to really be clever about the way you chose your stuff at creation because of how level scaling worked. Now you don't need to worry about that. Your character will level off of both your major and minor skills, as well as allowing you to allocate however many points you want into every ability at each level. Previously, you'd only level off major skills and you'd be granted bonuses based off of which ones you got to the level. So nowadays, just truly pick whatever you want. Don't worry about min-maxing as much, especially if this is your first time into the game. Just have fun with it. Fuck off whatever the internet says. When it comes to birth signs, Warrior, Thief, the new revamped Lord, Lady, and Atronach, or Atronosh, whatever one it is, are all really strong and will fit any type of character that needs the corresponding bonuses. The rest are a little bit more specific, which we'll discuss. For your race, you used to get different stats depending on your gender. Now that is tied to your origin. I provided a link to the Oblivion wiki below, which shows the stats so you can just, see which ones you want to go with and decide from there. But to be totally honest, you don't need to min-max this. Simply choose whatever race you want because of how leveling works now. Lastly, since skills are not what locks your leveling, you can truly choose whatever you want. But since the game's difficulty still dynamically shifts depending on your level, you should not choose athletics, acrobatics, or alchemy as your major skills, since they level up very fast and you can kind of cheese them. While major skills aren't required to level, they do contribute more per skill up, and this could put you into harder stuff faster, even with the revamped level scaling. But that's too long didn't watch this entire video. So if that's all you wanted to know, please feel free to shut the video down. I want to be respectful of your time. You can navigate to any part of this video that interests you the most using the chapters of the timeline in the description. And if you end up heading out, please don't forget to like, comment, or subscribe if the information in this video was helpful for you, as each one of those helps me out in a huge way. Lastly, if you've not yet purchased the game, you can find a link to Fanatical in the description and pinned comment, which will give you a Steam version of the game for 17% off, and I make something like, I think it's like a 4% commission, which goes directly towards my mini Aussies toy fund. But let's get started on my ultimate guide for birth signs, race, class creation in Oblivion Remastered. So before we even start in, what I want to tell you is nothing you're choosing in the sewers is permanent until you leave the sewers. So if you're just booted the game up, you booted this video up because you're in the prison cell and you can't choose your race, don't worry, just choose a race and then push through to the end of the sewers, and then you can completely revamp everything. So it says gate to City Isle, you press E, and then you go ahead and choose identity, birth sign, class, whatever you want again. And like, so for example here, let's go to edit class. I've created my custom Death Knight, press continue, yes, and I can like now go into my inventory and look at my character and take a look at what changed if I want. This is when you can really kind of min-max those stats and whatever, or at least get a sense of what's changing with every single option. So don't worry about the permanence of anything. You have plenty of chances to revamp it at the very end of the tutorial. So to start us off, I'm actually not going to talk about race or birth sign because you're not going to understand what attributes are and what skills are, which both of those things, birth sign and race, give benefits to. So we're going to start with class conversation. That's mainly to talk about attributes. So your class here, you can choose any one of these canned classes and by all means go for it. They're all solid. There's nothing wrong with them. Like here's my Death Knight: Alteration, Blade, Conjuration, Destruction, Heavy Armor, Mysticism, and Restoration. That's not that far off from the Sorcerer, which is Alchemy, Alteration, Conjuration, Destruction, Heavy Armor, Mysticism, and Restoration. Or even the Spell Sword, which is most of what I just mentioned in my Death Knight one minus Illusion, right? So none of these are terrible. Really what you're doing here is you're really fine-tuning maybe a specific major skill or favorite attribute that you really want to focus on. So please, by all means, don't feel like you're going to be like, oh, am I going to gimp myself by going with an assassin or whatever? No, you'll be totally fine. So let's go ahead and click over here. We're going to click custom class, and then we see combat, magic, or stealth. Choose your specialization. All 7 skills of your specialization receive an initial 5-level bonus and increase more rapidly because we get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So when we choose our specialization, it's telling us that your initial 5-level bonus is going to happen immediately, and they'll get the increase rapidly to their skill gain. So then we go into attributes. So here is our conversation here on attributes. And this is pretty straightforward, but some things have changed a little bit. So let's just go through it very quickly. So you're going to choose 2 favored attributes. They will receive an initial +5 bonus. Usually your race selection or your birth sign will also give you 5, 10, 15 bonus points to an attribute as well. So you'd want to probably stack these things if you really wanted to get down to the minutia of min-maxing them, but there's plenty of ways to increase them throughout the game, so don't really worry about it. When it comes to strength, it's very conventional. Affects the amount of damage you deal, specifically though, with longswords, claymores, maces, war axes, battle axes, war hammers, and your bare hands. What's worth noting is longswords and claymores are blades. Maces, war axes, and battle axes, war hammers are blunt. So even though there is a blade on an axe, it is considered a blunt weapon. Just know that. Also, it defines how much you can carry and slightly increases your max health. Endurance is the big max health increaser. So strength is going to be crucial if you're trying to use lots of blades, if you're trying to be more of a warrior, a barbarian style of character. My Death Knight is a blade using character, but I'm not focusing on strength as one of my primary attributes. So if you're using blades, you don't need to have strength there. It's just really, if I'm going to go with more of a pure warrior, it really is going to make sense. Or even furthermore, my Death Knight, which is a battle mage type of character, a spell sword, can still benefit from strength plus a willpower plus endurance. So don't feel like you're pigeonholed, because if you want to use these, like, oh man, and they're not going to do well, they'll do just fine. Intelligence determines your max magicka, allowing you to cast more powerful spells. So this is just simply it adds additional mana into your mana pool. And when you think of intelligence in a lot of other games, you think of this being a stat that relegates the damage allowed by those spells. The limitation for your spell is the amount of mana you've got. So as you start to scale up into better and better and bigger and crazier and cooler skills, skills and spells, you won't be able to cast them if you don't have the magicka. So the damage is linked to a magicka amount, if that makes sense. So if you have high intelligence, or at least enough magicka to cast the highest level of spells, then you'll do more damage. If you don't, then you don't do more damage. So the intelligence does scale your damage, but it's because that damage is linked to magicka. Next is willpower, determines how quickly you regenerate magicka, greatly increases your max fatigue. Willpower is one of those ones that's really beneficial for a lot of different characters because fatigue is huge. It used to be that fatigue, if you were, the more you were fatigued, the less damage your character would do with melee weapons. It is not that way, which is really nice. So you are able to do damage even with lower fatigue, but having low fatigue means you can't run, you'll not be able to do heavy, you'll not be able to attack, you'll not be able to do certain abilities. So fatigue is a really crucial stat to have at a decent amount. And also regenerating magicka is always nice, period. It's a great ability. Willpower is one I definitely recommend if you're going to go with any type of spellcaster, be it a paladin, be it a battle mage, be it a pure mage, be it a stealth kind of, I think it's called a nightshade in this game. Nightshade is the one that is a caster stealth character. I think it's probably more of a priority to me than intelligence. So if you are trying to make a pure casting character, I would argue that willpower and endurance is almost better than endurance and intelligence, versus say if I'm making a hybrid caster that is melee oriented, strength and willpower is really strong if I'm trying to use more of my swords, but still that willpower is going to benefit me, right? It's going to help me with my regenerating my magicka, and it's going to help me with my max fatigue so I can swing my sword more, block more, whatever the situation is. Willpower is a real good one. Agility here affects the amount of damage you deal with daggers, short swords, and bows. So while blade is going to cover your short swords and daggers, right? Agility is going to help out with that amount of damage, just like strength did for long swords. Slightly increases your max fatigue and defines how quickly you regenerate fatigue. So This is going to be crucial if you're doing any kind of stealth archer build. You really want to focus on archery. You definitely want to pick up agility. If you are not going to focus on stealth archery, but you're still going to use a bow and arrow, like maybe you want to be some sort of ranger character that is not stealthing around, maybe using heavy armor and using a bow, which was actually the very first Oblivion character ever made, which eventually became a stealth archer. Agility is pretty crucial to that because it scales that damage out. So strength and agility are really good for blade wielding bow characters that want to focus on both of those and don't want to touch any kind of magic. Speed is an interesting one because it determines how fast you move, but it's also a pretty crucial one because speed is in general, it's really nice to help you get around the game until you get yourself onto a horse, which still has limitations because you can't take a horse inside of a dungeon, and dungeons get huge. You can't take your horse inside of the Plane of Oblivion, and Planes of Oblivion are also huge. I probably wouldn't focus on this as a starting stat, but it's one of my favorite stats because when you get a high amount of speed, you become very zippy and you can just jump around the map very quickly. I would focus more on something that's going to either help out with damage or one of my stats in the sense of fatigue, magicka, or health points. I think that's probably a better focus when it comes to my favorite attributes. And it's why if I wanted to go with any kind of class that is in the stealth section, I would make a custom one and pull speed off of it for a favorite attribute personally. Endurance is another one here that's going to increase your max health and defines how you regenerate health. So this works very similar to, agility and willpower, right? This is regenerating magicka, this is regenerating fatigue, endurance is regenerating health. And it's why I've chosen this for my battle mage character. So now my character has increased regeneration of their health and their magicka. Those stats don't regenerate in combat as fast as they do outside of combat, so be mindful of that. But endurance is a attribute that I feel fits with nearly every single character. I think in lieu of playing maybe a stealth archer where you're trying to keep more fatigue online because you want to be able to sprint, run around, get away from things, unless you're not as focused so much on your max health. I think those are situations where I wouldn't really focus on endurance. But I think endurance is one of the ones that I always have trouble determining if it's going to be a favorite attribute or not, because it's nice to have that regeneration and that increased max health. Personality is really nice here because it affects how much people like you, leading to better information gathering and better trade deals. It's more of a nice to have because speechcraft, the skill, is more important, but it kind of has a relationship here with personality. So this kind of sits there with speed for me. It's a nice to have, but it's not one I want to really give the bonus to. Luck is another one that affects all your skills, having an effect on everything you do. It's kind of like a fun little mystery skill that gives little bonuses and stat bumps across the board to everything. And this is the only attribute that when you go to level up requires more points to level up. And I'll show you what a level up screen looks like at the end of this video, which you can jump to if you'd so wish. But luck is pretty much like a catch-all. Like, hey, you could have this to bump everything across the board. There's also like rumored modifiers that it helps you with things like, oh, this helps out with the things that you loot and so on and so forth. But I wouldn't choose this as an attribute either because it is a bit of a wild card. I would just want to focus on specific things to give me those better buffs. And like I said, now that we can specifically choose our attributes with each level, we don't need to worry about the min-max of this selection here because we can buff up. Like if you say, after 4 or 5 levels, if you've chosen willpower and endurance and you go, oh man, I'm actually just using agility and strength now. Don't worry. Every time you level, just put those points into agility and strength. But before we go into all of the skills, it's important to know that there are different levels to skills. Your skill will progress every 25 some odd points. Let's go to one that I'm really low on. Every 25 some odd points, from novice to apprentice to journeyman to expert to master. If you've played Ultima Online, you know what that feels like. Now, this means that when you get to each one of these breakpoints, you'll unlock more capabilities. So Armorer here, for example, you can repair magic items at 25. Then your repair hammers last twice as long. And then you can repair beyond 100 at expert, and then at master, your repair hammers never break. So you can see that it scales once you hit to 100 to a pretty awesome effect in some way, shape, or form. Even furthermore, if I were to take a look at something like Blade, this starts to change the way the blade works. Your power attacks apply weakness to normal weapons to your opponent. Your regular attacks have a slight chance to make your opponent bleed, and then the weakness to normal weapon applied by your power attacks is even stronger. So you can see how that kind of has a dynamic sense to it. I wanted to point this out because you might not be aware of these things, especially if you're coming from Skyrim, which had its own little talent tree per skill. So we're going to talk about these major skills, but just know, like I said before, your major skills and minor skills will contribute to this experience bar. Your major skills contribute to this at a larger volume than your minor skills. Previously, it required your major skills to level up. So you don't need to worry about that now. Just level up as you see fit, and the contribution will be more or less depending on whether it is a major or a minor. When selecting your skills, we have the three schools, I guess you could say, right? War, magic, and stealth, or combat, magic, and stealth. And then you have a handful within. It says at the top there, choose your major skills. Major skills receive an initial 20 level bonus, meaning that they're immediately going to go into the novice category at bare minimum, probably apprentice, and increases much more rapidly. So you will get a experience gain to these respective skills. Again, if you decide to pivot in the middle of your gameplay from playing rather than blade and heavy armor to, let's just say, blunt and light armor, you're still going to level just fine. They're just, those abilities are going to level slower. So don't get too worried about it. And just to kind of go through this very quickly, Armorer is your ability to repair your armor, which you'll do quite a bit in this game. I can't even remember if you even did it in Skyrim. Yeah, you did. You did. Yes, you did. Oh, God. I've played so much Skyrim and so much Oblivion that my knowledge of both has blended together, and it's kind of haywire. But Armorer allows you to repair past 100, which is really nice. It's also not that expensive to repair. So if you skip this on a build, don't think that you're going to be in a rough spot. My character is going to be using heavy armor and blades, and I'm skipping Armorer. Don't even worry about it. But it is a great one nonetheless. Athletics is one I would not take because it affects how quickly you run, swim, and sprint. You can eventually like run on water and all sorts of cool stuff, but you'll gain it so quickly that it could superficially bloat your level. Even though the leveling scaling has changed, this still can contribute to you dealing with harder enemies faster. So I would try not to choose this as a major skill. Blade is like we talked about before, long swords, short swords, daggers, but not any kind of mace and any kind of axe. Those are covered in blunt, but that is damage with those weapons. Block is using a shield, but also block can get different abilities to help out when it comes to mitigating spell damage towards you, which is really fun as you start to level up. And if you get the spell shield, Spellbreaker, it's a Daedric artifact that absorbs magic. It's pretty sick. Block becomes pretty cool towards the latter levels. It does work with two-handed weapons, just to a lesser effect. I think it's like a 60% reduced effectiveness. I can't remember the actual stat, but it's just not as effective as using an outright shield. Blunt, like I said, how much damage you deal with blunt weapons, you can see right there. It's got maces, axes, and warhammers right on it. Hand to hand, it's just with your fists. Makes a lot of sense. Heavy armor. There's two different armors in this game, heavy armor and light armor. Light armor is better in the very beginning. Heavy armor scales out better. Don't worry about either one though. Like if you want to say, hey, I want to use light armor, but you said it's not that great in the late game. The difference will become negligible by the time you max them both out. It really will come down to the aesthetic. What I would do is type in to Google Oblivion heavy armor, and you'll see all, I think it's 6 of them or 8 of them, because there's some that were added in with the FLCs, and the same thing with light armor, and see which ones you like the look of and go with that. Light armor looks really cool at the end, but so does heavy armor. So you go with what makes sense for your character and don't worry too much. Just know though that heavy armor is heavy. So in the beginning of the game, it will really rough up your carry capacity. It's something that you'll eventually work through because as you level up heavy armor, it'll weigh less on you. You'll be able to do more with it, and your character will eventually get more strength. So don't worry too much about it. Into magic, we have all of our magic skills. So to kind of go through these quickly, let me start with alchemy first. I would not choose alchemy as a skill because you can level it up very quickly, very, very, very quickly, and it can again superficially bloat your level. It's not going to do it to the degree that it used to, but I just want to give another warning ahead of time that it could possibly push you too far. But you can make some stupid cool potions in this game. So if you're playing any kind of magical character, I'm playing a magical character and I'm not even taking it, but I definitely recommend jumping into it. It's a very fun skill, and it has a really good system in this game. I think it's a better system than Skyrim. Also, magic, you can create your own spells in Oblivion. This is something that Skyrim did not take from its predecessors. Every previous Elder Scrolls game can make its own spells. It just stopped in Skyrim for whatever reason, or I think it's like to a watered down degree. Into our major schools, you get Alteration, Conjuration, Destruction, Illusion, Mysticism, and Restoration. Basically, Alteration here, it says breathe or walk on water, open locks, reduce encumbrance, and shield yourself. The biggest one on this list is the shield yourself portion, because you can give yourself a shield that can absorb both magical and or physical damage. But Alteration is altering the world. So any kind of altering effect is going to fall under this magical category. Opening locks is cool, but there is a Daedric artifact that will allow you to, it's called the skeleton key. It will never break. So once you get that Daedric artifact, whenever you do, you can just you can spam the button to just auto pick the lock and you'll get right through it. So a lot of the big things that are cool about Alteration, you can just kind of eventually circumvent using stuff like that. Conjuration is really strong in Oblivion. The summoned creatures in this game are very good. Even the very first one that you get, which is summon a skeleton, like if you choose this, you immediately get the spell to summon a skeleton, and it's really good. It affects your ability also to summon weapons and armor. You can get these called like illusory or ghost. I can't remember the name of them, but you can summon armor and weapons that are very good too. So Conjuration is really strong. I think it's one of the stronger magic schools next to the next one, which is Destruction. So Destruction here has obviously elemental damage and weaken for opponents, but if you're playing any kind of melee build like I am, you have a bunch of really strong touch spells, you have lots of really cool range spells that you can use, and then making your own. You used to be able to make a fireball that would like crash the game if you were playing on a console way back in like the Xbox 360 days. So you can have a lot of fun with Destruction, making just disgusting abilities as long as you have the money to do so. And it's a really, really rewarding school that is obviously going to be the lion's share of damage within your magic school options. Illusion here allows you to charm, conceal, create light, silence, paralyze, command, and affect aggressivity. Illusion that has very specific spell styles that I don't like using in the game personally, but I know that they can be really well abused, especially a lot of the invisibility ones. So if you're playing kind of a stealthy character and you want to lean into some magic, Illusion has a lot of really cool things to help you out with that. Charm and Conceal being two of the biggest frontline running things, as well as like paralyzing and commanding stuff. It's probably one of the coolest portions of Illusion. It's just not a playstyle that I really fall into, but it's definitely a school that allows you to manipulate the game in a lot of really cool ways. Mysticism here is important for one big thing on this entire list: bind souls. So you use magic items in this game. Magic items have charges. To replenish those charges, you have to use soul gems, and soul gems bind souls using mysticism. So that's the biggest focus of mysticism. You get reflect damage and absorb magic, dispel, move objects, sense life, reveal paths, stuff like that. And those are all really cool, like nice abilities, especially something like sense life in the very beginning of the game. You basically can see like infrared is what it kind of looks like. So you can see what's coming around the corner and stuff like that. It's a really, really good ability, but bind souls is the best portion of mysticism, and you don't even need to specialize in it to really use it. It's like, I think it's a level like 0 skill to use. So you'll use it almost all the time as you play. Restoration here is if you're going to be like some sort of paladin, but restore, fortify, and absorb attributes, cure diseases, and improve resistances. It's another one that you'll use a lot alongside Destruction, because you're going to be throwing spells and then healing yourself simultaneously as things get close to you, giving yourself a way to repel that damage back at them. Well, not repel it back at them, but mitigate the damage that you could throw. You'll use Mysticism to repel that damage back at them. For all of your stealth skills, pretty straightforward here on these. Acrobatics is your ability to jump and withstand falls. You can do a backflip. You can jump on water. Athletics is not running on water. Acrobatics is jumping on water. I apologize about that. You can also get basically not a feather fall, but you can jump from further distances and not take damage from it. Acrobatics is really cool. You can cheese this though, so do not take this. It's very easy to level up your acrobatics, and it will again superficially bloat your level. If you want to really level your acrobatics, run up a large flight of steps, keep spamming jump, or find an overpass or something that allows your character to have to like kind of crouch or something that makes it so that your ability to jump is limited, you just spam jump and you'll level up very quickly because your character won't jump all the way, but it still counts as a full jump. Light armor is the opposite of heavy, and like I said before, light armor does scale better in the beginning, but kind of falls off to the end where heavy armor takes over, but they both kind of end up being very roughly at the same point once they're at 100 each. I think heavy armor just ekes out just above it. Marksman is your damage with bows, very straightforward. Mercantile here is the ability to get better deals that plays very well with Speechcraft. So this is just like an outright better sell and buy rate, whereas Speechcraft is your ability to use Speechcraft to get better standing with someone, to get better deals on stuff. So you use those two in conjunction, it's very, very good. Races like the Imperials get this innately built into their character, which is very fun. Security here is your ability to pick locks, open doors, and containers. This is another one that is just, like I said before, it's because of that Daedric artifact. It eventually falls to the wayside whenever you get it, because you're like, okay, I don't care about my security level. If this is the hardest lock in the game, I can just spam the button until I get through, because I still have like a 1% chance to get through. But it is still useful up until the point you get that. It's just worth noting that. Eventually, security will basically give you that Daedric artifact through its level 100 ability. Sneak affects your ability to move unseen and unheard by observers and your odds of getting away with pickpocketing. If you're playing a stealth archer, you will choose Sneak. Sneak is very strong and cool in this game, especially as you get to access tons of fun stuff with the Dark Brotherhood and the Thieves Guild. There's a reason the stealth archer is a meme, and it is really... I think it really became prevalent in Oblivion and then was just amplified out into Skyrim. Speechcraft, like I said, is your ability to persuade listeners to like and trust you, so it plays into Mercantile to give you those better trade deals, those better rates on all things that you are buying and selling. There's a mini game for doing Speechcraft where you just kind of figure out the two things they dislike, the two things they do like, and try and use the mini game to increase your favor with them. But these are all of our skills, and choosing these skills are going to come down to really what you want out of the character. And like I said before, they can be from a mix of the schools. Like I've got blade and heavy armor. I've got a ton of magic because I wanted to be more of a mage that does battle rather than a mage that does battle. Does that make sense? That makes sense? Like a battle mage or a mage battle. I don't know what the fuck I'm saying. My point is though, I wanted to have more magic than combat stats, but you could do the opposite here. Hey, I want armor, I want blade, I want block, I want heavy armor, and I'm gonna go with restoration and like mysticism or alteration and go with more of a paladin. So kind of mix and match these things. But like I said before too, you get a 20 level bonus and they increase much more rapidly. You can jump off of this at any point in your leveling and still be totally fine. I've beaten the game with a character that I made custom that I did not stick with the skills I chose, and I had no problem with it. So do not worry. Choose what you want. Don't worry about what the internet tells you is the min-max of it. This game is meant to be enjoyed how you want to play it, not what the internet tells you. So when it comes to our race selection, we now understand how both skills and attributes work. And I can go through each nitty-gritty thing about every skill benefit that they get, all those things, but I think it's going to help. You're going to get a little lost in the weeds. If you're going through character creation, you go ahead and press open stats. It's F on the keyboard. I do not know what it is on console, unfortunately. It just says it right down here. You press that button and you can see the attribute differences and all the skills that you'll get. Now, these skills are unfortunately bloated and changed because I've already selected a class for myself, but you can see, let's take a look at Blade. Blade right now says plus 30. Let's go ahead and click on this. Now it's plus 35 because Nord get bonus to Blade. Or if I click on this, they have plus 5 to Blade. They get no bonus to Blade. So that's down to 25. So you can see, if I click around, you can see how it changes my skills. But if you're just playing the game outright, all the raw skill bonuses they get will show up here right here. And the most important thing is understanding how the attributes work. And I'm going to discuss more abstract how these races operate rather than saying, hey, this is the best race for Blade because they get a plus 10 bonus. They can't go above that. You know, you don't get like, hey, because I have a plus 10 at the start here means I can have a higher overall skill. It's saying that you get to that master level quicker is the most important thing to understand about the innate bonus of that skill. So that's how that all works. So previously you would choose male or female to get these different stat bonuses, but now we just choose an origin here. So if we take a look at the Argonian, which can breathe underwater, it's really cool. If I go ahead and press Thornmarsh, you can see they go from agility bonus of 50 and strength, speed at 50. Everything over 40 is green. Anything below 40 is red. So Thornmarsh, now they get intelligence and willpower bonus. So the Thornmarsh Argonians are better casters than the Arnesians. So Arnesians, I don't know. So you can see that there's a direct correlation between these two origins. It's not always cut and dry like that. Usually it's a pretty minor thing, but this gives you an idea. So Argonians here are really good characters that are going to be great at both casting if you go with Thornmarsh, but also very awesome when it comes to being a stealth character, since they do get those benefits to a lot of stealth things like Blade, like security, as well as is it acrobatics or athletics that they get a bonus to? I might have a cheat sheet over on the right side of the screen. We both don't know. It's athletics. But they do also get a bonus here to 100% immunity to both disease and a 75% to poison. So they're very good at resisting those two effects. Argonians, again, very good at more illusion magic and mysticism, less outright magic, like the destruction and restoration that's going to be coming up. Britain is one of the fan favorites when it comes to any kind of hybrid caster that focuses on melee as well, because they get a juicy bonus to their magicka of a plus 50, and they have a 50% resistance to magicka itself. It's worth noting that any of those resistance bonuses, they can be stacked with other things at the start here, like your Birthsigns, which we'll talk about in a second. And you can see the two different versions here between these two. But Britons basically focus on lots of spellcraft. They're great pure mages, but they're also really good at splitting that difference and being maybe a spell blade that uses more offensive magic versus the defensive magic of, say, like alteration or restoration. You get lots of bonuses to all the big magic schools focusing on conjuration and healing, as it says right there. So that is how our Briton would work. The Dark Elf is also one that sits pretty interesting too, as being kind of a hybrid character too. You focus on swords, bows, and destruction. You can summon an ancestral ghost. You get a resistance to fire. It's a balanced character. I've always really liked the Dark Elves in this game. And the difference between Varfendel or Mainland is basically a difference between endurance and personality. That's really it. But they are, this is the one I've chosen for my Death Knight because it gets a bonus to Blade and it gets a bonus to Destruction, both of a plus 10. And that's the big thing I wanted to focus on for the character. So Dark Elves can play as really good hybrid characters that could be both melee and magic, or just pure mage characters if you so wish. Now, the other really good pure mage character is a High Elf here, because they get a magicka bonus of 100, which is huge. The difference here between the two, you can see, is pretty much on speed and endurance. Just depends on what you want to focus on. They do get a 75% resistance to poison, but they get a minus 25% resistance to fire, frost, and shock. Worth noting that they make for really good pure casters. You could still play them as hybrid casters, even stealth characters if you want, because you just like High Elves. Go with whatever you think plays the best, but they just get tons of 5s and 10s to all of the spellcasting skills. The Imperial is a character that fits very well into pure warrior or a kind of paladin-like character. They get an ability that their abilities are focused on heavy armor and social skills, because they do get a plus 10 to heavy armor, to mercantile, and to speechcraft. And they have 2 skills that you cannot see in this screen, unfortunately. I don't know why they didn't show that, but they've got Star of the West, which allows them to absorb fatigue, and Voice the Emperor, which acts as a charm, which is really cool. So if you want to play like a paladin character, Imperial is really my go-to for that. That's the one I've always done for a lot of my paladin characters, and I'm really a big fan of it. Khajiit, on the other hand, are really good stealth archers and stealth characters across the board. That is kind of their big focus, and it's kind of always been their big focus, and they're fun characters nonetheless too. All of the stealth skills, they'll get benefits too, including, of course, athletics and acrobatics. They have like an innate safe fall, I think. No, maybe they didn't. They added this, I don't remember. But either way, they get Eye of Fear and Eye of Night. Eye of Night used to be an ability that only lasts 30 seconds. Khajiit can just see in the dark at all times, which is really cool. Eye of Fear is a demoralize that you get to use, which is fun. The Nord is your classic kind of Norse Viking character. If you've played Skyrim, you know what a Nord is. Skyrim is for them. And their focus is on strength and on endurance. Even Eastern and Western, you're losing you're losing a little bit of endurance to gain willpower. You can see that that's the big focus here. But, you know, conversely too, they are also very good paladin characters as well, because they get a bonus to armor, block, and restoration, 3 skills that I would use on my paladin characters. They get Nordic Frost, which is a frost damage touch ability, Woad, which is a shield, and they themselves resist frost by 50%. So you can see they play a lot with that characteristic. Orcs are disgusting, but they're here nonetheless. And orc characters really favor pure warrior gameplay, but they too also like going into armor. They get a +10 to armor, block, blunt, and heavy armor, as you can see. And they also, as you can jump around between this, it's basically swapping intelligence between these two for more or less personality and willpower. But they have a berserk capability, which fortifies fatigue by 200, health by 20, strength by 50, drains their agility by 100. So they get to do a ton of damage, and they can swing like crazy because they have 200 more fatigue points, but they have a really low agility, right? So they're going to be just really sluggish about it all. They have a natural resistance to magic as well. Our Red Guard is the best. I would say the Red Guard is like what is considered for the longest time the best pure warrior in the game, because they've just got so many good abilities. They have tons of affinity too, as it says, with many weapons and armor styles. And you're swapping either strength here with personality, as you can see between these two. What's really good about them is their adrenaline rush capability, which it doesn't mention in this location at all for some reason. They do get, it says, I also have a hardy constitution, which I think is their adrenaline rush, but they get a bonus of 75% to both disease and resist poison. Adrenaline rush is kind of like Berserk Rage, but it's fortifies agility by 50, endurance by 50, speed by 50, strength by 50, and then health by 25. It's a really, really good capability, and their big focus is on blade, blunt, and athletics of +10. Lastly, we have the Wood Elves, which again are good stealth archers, and I would say, like, comparing them to, say, like the Argonian, which the Argonian can be more of a caster. Definitely the Wood Elves can as well, because they get +10 to alchemy, marksman, and sneak, but they get a 5 to acrobatics, alteration, and light armor. So you can go with more of the defensive spells as a wood elf if you so wish. They just make very good archers because they get that +10 to marksman. They get beast tongue though, which allows them to command creatures, and then wood elf resistance at a 75% resistance to disease. So that is your race selection. So do you want to be a good stealth archer? Maybe you want to go with wood elf, Khajiit, Argonian, even dark elf. Do you want to be a pure warrior? Well, go with one of these 3, maybe even the Imperial. Maybe you want to go with a hybrid warrior caster. Imperial's great, Britain's great, Dark Elf's great. Even if you want to go with more of a caster that does melee, High Elf is still good. It's still in there. The Nord is up there as well. So don't be afraid to shirk away from these. Just take a look at the skills and the attributes that give you the bonuses, and make sure you like the look, because you're going to be staring at these guys for the next like hundreds of hours. So make sure you like the way that they look. Maybe you like orcs and you didn't like my comment earlier. Maybe you just want to play with a Briton or an Argonian. Go with whatever makes sense for you. Lastly, we have our birth signs. So birth signs are going to fall into a number of categories that correspond to the skills you're trying to choose with the character. They also will increase your abilities. So if you're going with a warrior, a pure warrior style of character, fortifying your endurance and your strength is going to be crucial. But they also play very well with any kind of spell blade, any kind of character that is going to mix both magic and casting. They're going to work very well with that. Into our mage, we have one that fortifies your magicka. I like the mage. It's just that it's just simply 50 points of magicka. You could do more with other things, I feel like. The thief, on the other hand, though, is really great. Agility, luck, and speed all get fortified by 10. It is amazing. If you're playing a stealth archer, just go with the thief. It's that cool. But if you're playing a stealth archer, you might also like the shadow. Grants invisibility for 60 seconds, can be used once per day. So it's kind of like not a get out of jail free card, but it's just a great way to jump into invisibility immediately. Illusion can kind of offset this because you'll get access to invisibility and the such, but it's just one that you can play into if you want to. I think I'd go thief just to get that fortification across the board. Another good one that people like in the beginning of the game, but kind of eventually bottoms out, becomes kind of a little bit of a meme, is the steed. Increases movement speed by 20 points. It's just nice to really zip around early in the game. It does kind of fall off though as you level up and get natural speed, natural increase to your light or heavy armor, which will then invariably make you faster, all sorts of stuff. The Apprentice is another really big call out one here. This is a really popular one because it increases your magicka by 100 points, but it reduces your magic resistance by 100. So if I'm playing a Briton, I get to basically get 150 points because these things are cumulative, and my susceptibility to magic, rather than 100, it's 50%. So you can stack these two and offset the difficulty, or the negative penalty here a little bit. This is really good if you're going to play a mage character. Even if you're playing a spellblade style of character, you just have to really be mindful that you now have to buff up your magic resistance, which you'll be able to do plenty of ways throughout the game. You just got to know that you got to do it. The ritual is an interesting one. So forces the undead to flee, and Mara's gift restores 200 points of health. The biggest thing of this is the Mara's gift for basically a really big nuke of a heal. I personally probably wouldn't go with it because they're both kind of situational. Yeah, it's a really big heal, but only once per day. And the Blessed Word is cool because you can use it multiple times per day, but it costs you 40 magicka. So if you're going with, this is kind of like, think of this as more like a paladin with a lay on hands capability and like a turn undead. That's how you should think of the ritual. So if you want to go with that style of character that basically has a big lay on hands heal, the ritual is definitely what gives you that. Now the Atronach, as I've called it, or Atronash, increases magicka by 150. So if you're a Briton, that's 200. If you're a high elf, that's 150. It's 250. Spell absorption, 50% chance of absorbing spells that cast at them. So if you're a Briton, that's now 100%. As I understand, spell absorption is the same thing as spell resistance. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong in the description, or I'm sorry, in the comments below. The last thing though, you cannot regenerate your magicka, so you're reliant on sorcery potions. That's not terrible. It's just, again, worth noting. It just gives you a disgusting amount of magicka points to take advantage of. If you're a Briton, this is really, really cool. It's a really good one that a lot of people recommend with the Briton as a kind of a min-max choice. And I think it's going to come down to you. Is this your first time in the game? Are you comfortable relying on sorcery potions to restore your magicka? If you're a veteran, try this one out. I think you'll really like the result. The tower here opens locks of average difficulty, can be used once per day, falls off very quickly, and reflects 5% of all incoming damage for 120 seconds, can only be used once per day. Personally, I just don't like this one very much because I think it just, the stuff is only once per day, and the average difficulty locks, you could just do them. It's only, it'd be different if you could do this multiple times. Because you can only use it once, you're probably going to be able to bypass those average locks on your own with your own capabilities, rather, especially into the mid game. You'll have just a naturally high enough security because you've messed up enough locks that you've increased it. Now, Lord here has been changed. It used to give a penalty to fire resistance or whatever it is, but now this increases armor rating by 15, increases magic resistance by 15. I like this one. It's not the most amazing pick. It's what I chose on my Death Knight because I just thought it'd be a really fun, different one because I liked the new Lord. It used to not be awesome, but increases magic resistance by 15. So if you're playing a Briton, that's now 65 and increases your armor rating by 15. So just free early durability. And if you're first time playing and you've played with any difficulty, it's not just the standard one, this is a cool thing to take advantage of. Now we have the Lady, which is really good though, increases your willpower and endurance. Remember we talked about both of those as being linked to our health, to our fatigue, and magicka restoration. So the Lady is very good for almost every single build. So this is one of those really good come all birth signs that you can that you can play with a lot of different class combinations. The Lover here is a paralysis, can only be used once per day. I would just choose anything else for this, to be totally honest with you. It doesn't paralyze the target for 10 seconds, reduces the caster's fatigue by 120. That's kind of nice, but I'd rather just do anything else with that. The Serpent here, Serpent spell, deal 3 points of damage for 20 seconds. It cures poison, dispels 90 points and damage fatigue 100 points to the caster, can be used once per day. So it's just really rough. You have to have a very specific gameplay method in mind. I would skip the Serpent as well. So really what this comes down to, are you going to play a fighter that just wants to be fighting? Go with the Warrior or the Lady. I think they're both really good for fighting. If you're playing any kind of hybrid character that is going to be using both magic and otherwise, I think the Lord is good for some early sustain. The Apprentice is good if you're comfortable with mitigating that the susceptibility to magic. Good lord, what was that? Increased magic up by 50 for the mage, also good for those types of characters, and the Atronach if you're comfortable with using sorcery potions. If you're using any kind of stealth character, I really like the thief here. It's just a really good one out the gate. Shadow is again okay for the granting of invisibility. I'd probably just go with this. Speed is also really good though for stealth characters, just to move around very quickly, and it will become you will become so fast later with this one. Now, for other kind of niche situations, I really like the ritual. If you're trying to make just like okay, this is a D&D paladin, it's right here, go with it. And if you're going with a pure mage, just pretty much this whole center column is good for pure mages, I would say. Again, you can use also the lore for some early sustain as well. But those are your birth signs for your characters. Before we close this video out, like I was saying, this is how your leveling works in the game now. You level up and you just choose attributes. You're not relegated to, okay, well, you got a bunch of strength skills, so you can only put points into certain things. Before, it was relegated to what skills you were getting levels in, and certain skills were linked to certain attributes. It's not like that anymore. You can see that I can just go ahead and put a max of 5 into 1. There's only one caveat here, and it's with luck. I can only put 1 point into that because it costs me 5 virtues, as it were. So this is different. So I can go, let's say we've got 12 virtues. So we could do that, right? We could put 7 points. And by 7, I mean 12. 12 points here. 2 into 1, 5 into another, 5 into another, or split them up however I want, right? This can be 3 into some different ones. It can be however you want to split this up, 4, 3, whatever it is. So this is how leveling works. I wanted to show you this so you knew it during character creation, so it's easier to jump into. So at that, it brings our video here to a close, and we covered a lot of stuff. This was a lot more dense than I thought it would be. And I think that understanding these things as you jump into your very first character for your very first time on Oblivion is good to know, because you're coming from maybe a system like Skyrim, where the birth signs, for example, you just got to go talk to a tower and you've got that birth sign. Your birth signs stay with you forever now, so you are locked into that one. Understanding how those skills are going to level you up and how those skills are maybe worth skipping as major skills so you don't superficially level is another really good thing. It's not as drastic as it is before, but also, to be totally fair about that statement, we don't know how drastic it truly is because the game's been out for a day. People need to push into the higher levels to see if that's really going to have a massive effect. But it used to be that you would just have to basically play spreadsheet simulator to get a sense of what your character was going to look like, and then be very specific about everything you did from level to level if you really wanted to min-max it. But I'll tell you, I never min-maxed the very first time I played this game, and I beat it hands down. Then I played it again, and I didn't min-max because we didn't have the access to the amount of knowledge that we have now across Reddits, YouTube videos, all sorts of stuff. I just played with the Prima Player's Guide, and I was fine. I was challenged in the challenging points, but nothing really broke my character. So you're going to be fine if you play that way, especially in a game now that is forgiving like the remastered version is. So please, 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 like I've said so many times in this video, play the way that you want. It's your game. You spent your money. Do with it what you will. There's only so many things that you can really take in input wise from the internet before it's just analysis paralysis. So just have fun with it, and I promise you're going to have a really good time. As always, though, thank you so much for watching here today. Have a good one and take care.